Every season, we see more colors, collections, and styles than ever before. But while fashion moves faster and faster, the concept of clothing hasn't changed much in over 100 years. Textiles still cover bodies and signify social code. Fabrics are still sewn with needles and sold in stores. Maybe it doesn't make sense to disrupt a $1.7 trillion industry. But shouldn't there be something more progressive than design and style changes? Shouldn't there be innovation that alters the entire concept of clothing? This is a film about the people behind the scenes, who are working to shape the next big step in clothing history.
Inherently, we're designers, so we are interested in the artistry of design, and very much EXO, we explore science fiction. We begin with a narrative, we imagine a world, but for us it's really about making science fiction science fact.
Nancy Tilbury is one of the pioneers of merging technology and fashion. Together with her team at Studio EXO, she works to actively develop what they call digital couture experiences, which in basic terms means creating garments that are interactive and evolving. Her ultimate goal is to bring these ideas and concepts to the streets. But as a first step, they're creating extravagant outfits for the likes of Arcade Fire, Black Eyed Peas, and of course, Lady Gaga.
It is pure design engineering that happens to be dressed up as fashion. Philosophically, as a project, we're really, really keen to tell people about this transformation in textiles, particularly in textiles and technology.
Behind the scenes, however, the race is on to integrate technology with mainstream clothing. In Germany, sportswear icon Adidas has spent the last few years developing a system that can monitor an athlete's real-time performance via their clothing.
On the front of the shirt, as you can see here on the outside, this is where our fabric heart rate sensors lie. And you can see they're not very easy to see, and it's all part of the garment. This is the back, so you can see it running. Where we have heart rate in there, we're looking at adding things like respiration, and obviously you're seeing a lot of other things coming into the market at the moment with integrating movement sensors and accelerometers into fabric, which are very, very small and non-invasive. And I think for us working in elite sports, that's really the key, is that it has to be something that the athlete cannot feel and it doesn't interfere with what they're doing. I think when we first had our first prototype, we went to AC Milan, and they're a very close partner of ours, and they've worked a lot on us in terms of user interfaces and how we display data. They're one of the most advanced teams in terms of physiological monitoring, and they use a lot of systems, they collect a lot of data, they do a lot of testing on their players, and they're really considered as being on the cutting edge when it comes to this sort of technology.
Total time, 1 hour and 56 seconds. Active time, 1 hour 30 seconds. Distance, 8.49 kilometers. High intensity distance, 965.
It's going to explode. We're in its infancy, and there's going to be some exciting things come out of it.
When envisioning the future, it's easy to get caught up in the marvels of technology. But could the most groundbreaking of future innovations be organic? Embracing nature rather than dominating it. BioCouture is a design consultancy focused on bringing living and biological materials into fashion and sportswear. Founder Suzanne Lee is currently heading one of the most thought-provoking initiatives in the industry today.
I was writing a book about the future of fashion, trying to discover what might be happening in fashion in sort of 50 years from now. So I was talking to lots of scientists and engineers, and one of the people I spoke to was a biologist. He was the first person to suggest to me that if you really want to completely rethink how you might create a piece of clothing, that you could imagine growing a dress in a vat of liquid using bacteria. We started just growing small trays, me in my bathroom, him in his garage, and, you know, just kind of comparing notes on what we were doing with temperature and covering and, you know. But very quickly, we could see that there was something there that was really promising. The process we used was incredibly simple, and actually I realised that it wasn't so difficult to produce something that not only was textile-like in feel, but that I could sew together like a normal piece of clothing. And it just shifted my whole thinking in terms of how you might create fashion in the future.
Reliant on precious natural resources, be it cotton picked from gigantic fields in India or nylon derived from petroleum products. Once the fabric has been manufactured, cut, sewed, and finished into ready-to-wear clothing, most of its leftovers are simply disposed of, creating a chain of waste in each step of the process. But with bioengineered clothing, we have an opportunity to reduce the impact of these old-world practices.
Think about something like fermentation and a living organism. There's kind of no waste because it's producing both the fibre, organising that into a material for you, and then ultimately, potentially, what you're looking at is being able to grow that material onto the form that you want it to take shape as. Right now, we're not genetically engineering that bacteria to produce the material for us. But the future will be about designing the bacteria to spin the thread, to give it the quality. But what I'm excited about is not today's 3D printing, which is still using oil-based petrochemical nasty plastics and filling the world with more plastic. You know, plastic is my nemesis, you know. I want it to be organic and natural and compostable.
Staggering 47%. But while new styles at low prices are abundant, this relentless production and consumption is accused of having a much higher cost on the environment.
So what about this, folks? In the most potent environmental appeal of the season, Patagonia just placed a full-page ad in the New York Times on the holiest of sales days, Black Friday. Don't buy this jacket, says the headline, along with the retailer's R2 coat. The ad asks people to think twice before buying Patagonia products, since our clothing consumption, as stated in the copy, puts the economy of natural systems that support all life firmly in the red. Well, how's that for a Black Friday ad?
The campaign to try to convince our customers to buy just what they need came out of the recession that began in 2009, when we started to realize that people were responding to the recession by redefining their relationship to stuff, including clothing. And there were a number of people that were recognizing that you actually save money if you buy things that last longer and you buy fewer of them as a consequence. And we wanted to figure out, well, how can we provide a service to those people? I was able to convince Yvon Chouinard, who owns the company, that he wanted to do this. But then it took both of us to convince others inside the company quite a while, especially the people in sales and merchandising. You can imagine, you go to them and say, well, we want to run this ad to ask people not to buy our stuff unless they really need it. And they go, you want to do what? They think you're crazy. But then you have to explain the reason for it. And you have to bring it into the context of the company's responsibility to the environment. It's not don't buy the jacket, but it's don't buy the jacket if you don't need it. And mixing it, reselling it if you're not using it, recycling it was completely worn. The fact is that our sales went up after that ad, and they've continued to go up, and the company's continued to grow.
Sophie Mather is a former head of innovation at Nike Asia and an industry expert when it comes to sustainable textiles.
You visit, and I was driving through an area that was farming watermelons. Up until that point, I ate a lot of watermelons until I drove past the river that was feeding the watermelons the water. Nobody would want to drink anything from that stream. And obviously, you know, the impact of industrial factories in the area was just polluting the farming, and people were obviously eating that. So I think it's visual things like that that make me really passionate about what I'm doing.
A few years ago, she began working together with the Ye Group, a Bangkok-based textile manufacturer and pioneers of a revolutionary new technology called dry dye, a solution that can color fabrics without using a single drop of water. This also uses 50% less energy and 50% less chemicals than traditional methods. Still in an early stage of development.
It's kind of a no-brainer. Dry dye is clean. You know, everything about it is clean. The fabric is dry. The stuff that comes out is...
The impact of this jacket on the planet over its lifetime was with Patagonia that made the jacket. The other half of its impact is with me, the person that bought it, and how I use and care for it.
I think it's fundamental to learn how to work on the things that we consume. Rather than being a passive consumer society, wouldn't it be great if we could all be more actively involved in our things? And one of the fantastic things about repairing things is that you start to get more connected to your products. And maybe I fix a jacket and I put different zipper on it than came with it, or I change some of the colors. And now, rather than that being something that I bought, it's something that I own.
Garment was handmade, one of a kind, and then we hit this industrial age in the 20s and 30s where suddenly garments were being mass-produced. And I think once people get back to feeling the value of having this jacket be my unique jacket and having that be sort of the couture, I think we'll be in a much better place.
I think fashion future is a little bit more like fashion past. So we will invest in garments that are maybe higher price point. We'll look at other types of models, so maybe subscribing to our clothes, which is really interesting. You know, the idea that we may pay a subscription fee to have vessels that we can consume content. And ultimately, I believe that Generation Digital want to consume like that. You know, actually, the reason why they're going into these big shops is because of the speed at which they want to switch up their fashion. Now, if the surface of their clothes is transformable, well, they really need to do that. Means of fashion.
One of those paths is to a future that is pretty grim. The other road is towards a better future where we actually reverse those indicators and our planet gets healthier. In our business, making clothes, we can do that by making the clothes with the least impact, with no unnecessary harm, and on the part of our customers who buy our clothes to take care of them, to fix them, to wear them out, to recycle them, to launder and clean them with the best practices possible.
Difficult to make people change their behavior. You know, a whole new generation have grown up going into Primark and H&M, buying things so cheaply that they don't have any understanding that it should be any other way, because that's all they've ever known.
Of the people and innovations that are helping to shape the future of clothing. And whether it moves in the direction of technology, biology, sustainability, all of the above, or something completely different, nobody can know. But once the dust has settled, we'll reflect on this time and think that what we ended up with was obvious. The same way we look back at any other transformation we've ever experienced.